even as much as celebrities and football players and more men are talking about mental health, and that is incredibly powerful. And I love that. But the stigma is still very real. And a lot of times these companies are spending thousands and thousands of dollars on programs to teach leadership or teach management how to find signs of somebody who's struggling, but then they're still not giving the resources to create that accessibility and that comfort and that confidentiality on the back end.
Welcome back to the Accelerate Your Insurance Sales podcast. I am joined by Jenny Weaver with Ally Health. Jenny, welcome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Now we're going to have some, the reason I wanted to have you on is, we're recording this in June. First episode I've done, by the way, in somebody's backyard, which is nice. We're in-house today. We're in Arizona, but being that it is Men's Mental Health Month, I think it was great to have you on. So for the people who are tuning in that have no clue who Jenny Weaver is, introduce yourself.
Oh my gosh. Who am I? Well, I guess when it comes to work, I'm the director of broker relations for Ally Health. We're a division of PES benefits, and we really just focus on virtual care, which in this case is access to mental health services, access to doctors and physicians, and just really helping people to get in front of those providers in a way that's easier than going through insurance or facing copays or just accessibility in general.
Let's talk a little bit about, we're gonna get into Ally Health, and then definitely want to get into just what makes you tick.
Okay.
So Ally Health, again, just like introducing yourself, for the people who aren't familiar with Ally Health.
Yeah.
What is it? What are you guys doing?
We are, like I mentioned, giving people access to health providers or mental health providers, all virtually. So with no copays, with no limit on family accessibility or dependence or not dependence. We just want people to get in front of providers on a more regular basis. So whether it be urgent care, primary care, dermatology, or just immediate mental health access, scheduled talk therapy, psychiatry, or even like practical daily support where you're talking about financial questions, legal questions, different other strains on life. We want people to have that at their fingertips, literally on an app or a web portal, or to call in and just have help on the other line. And we do provide a zero copay setup or membership to do exactly that. And the whole household can use the service, not just the employee who's on the health plan. It's really unrelated. So it's really beautiful. It's really fun to be part of.
So if I'm a family member, I don't actually have to be on the health plan? That's great.
No, yeah. So it could be spouses, significant others, kids of significant others. I've talked to several groups who maybe have a younger demographic, and the benefit can actually support their parents because they're still living at home. So parents, grandparents, et cetera, if they're in the household, they can have access to Ally Health services.
That's awesome. I'd love your opinion if you're willing to share. I mean, in a world we live in now where we feel like we're more connected than ever before because of social media and things like that. And we do so many things virtually these days, but we're always so connected. Everybody's on their phone 24/7. Why do people feel so isolated? Why do you think our mental health issues are off the charts right now?
Dopamine addiction to social media.
Okay. And like, I'm a big preacher of social media. I don't disagree with you.
Right. No, right. I mean, we need it for a lot of things. We use it for business. We use it to connect. And I'm going to use the word connect lightly as well, because I feel like people portray what they'd like to on social media. It's all...
It's the perfect 1 second.
Yeah. And there's a lot of like emotions, and people are sharing like not so great things and not the shiny objects too. But it's still curated.
Yeah.
And we put ourselves in this place where we're comparing ourselves to others, good, bad, or otherwise. And we're only really connecting with that, with people on a screen instead of each other. And it's tough. And there is that dopamine addiction. There's that kick that we get of scrolling through TikTok or Instagram, or I do it. Yeah. I'm on there all the time, and I love LinkedIn. And I do love when people are supportive of what I'm posting. Like, it does make me feel good.
Yep.
And I think we're just all getting really used to that, which is crazy.
Well, you bring up a really good point, and I hope what I'm about to say doesn't hit somebody the wrong way, but you see it once in a while, even on LinkedIn. I feel like I'm a pretty good observer of content and somebody's content and the journey they're going through emotionally because of the content. And then you can kind of tell, like, is this person okay? You know, just the way and then all of a sudden a month later, they throw the post out
Yeah.
where they get really vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
and basically let the world know they're not in a good
Yeah.
place.
Yep.
And you're right. I think for a lot of people, especially in our industry,
Mm-hmm.
they do get sucked into that dopamine.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to say it, I've been there.
Yeah.
And there's this big, how do I say it? Big push of industry popularity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it really sucks people in.
Yeah.
And they can find themselves in a position where here,
Yeah.
it doesn't put them in a good place.
Yep.
You agree with that?
I do.
What about men's mental health? You know, being that June is Men's Mental Health Month,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, again, I just love your thoughts. You know, ever since the pandemic, I feel like men especially have been dealing with mental health issues. Like, I don't know if when you look at the statistics of who's using Ally Health, you guys see a higher propensity of males
Um,
over females?
not over female,
Okay.
but because of the anonymity of our services, and the confidentiality of them, we do see that men are more willing to use our service, which is good. It's definitely not
I
higher
think it's
than
because men are often, you said the anonymity, men are often afraid to.
stigma is so
Okay.
real.
Okay.
Even as much as celebrities and football players and more men are talking about mental health, and that is incredibly powerful, and I love that. And even the vulnerability that I'm seeing on LinkedIn or social media of men just being like, "Look, I'm having a tough time, and if you're having a tough time, like I'm here, like this is my phone number," and I love that, and I respect that so much. But the stigma is still very real. I've had several situations talking to brokers or even directly to some clients that have shared where they're in a blue collar environment, so predominantly male.
Where there's definitely a
With
stigma.
definitely a stigma, right? And the amount of suicide, drug, alcohol abuse, it's so prevalent. And a lot of times these companies are spending thousands and thousands of dollars on programs to teach leadership or teach management how to find signs of somebody who's struggling. But then they're still not giving the resources to create that accessibility and that comfort and that confidentiality on the back end. And employee assistance programs are incredibly important. That short-term counseling, that in-the-moment care, it's great. But a lot of times, that person who finally decides, which according to you know Mental Health America or the National Alliance of Mental Illness, they've talked about how sometimes people will delay 10 years before even seeking help for the first time. So they've been struggling for 10, 11
An
decades.
entire decade. Wow.
And then they're like, you know what, I'm ready. But they don't want to go to HR to find out how to get access to the benefit that would help them. So they continue to struggle in silence. Or they do and they get access to something that gives them 3 sessions, but that's maybe 40 years of trauma that they need to unbundle, and they can't afford the copay or the deductible that they face once those 3 sessions are up and they have to go into their insurance. It just Healthcare in general is still clunky.
Yep.
We all know this. A lot of us are fighting for that. People in NABIP, we're all fighting for that. And mental health is still a piece that it really hasn't achieved parity, where it's supposed to be even with healthcare. Mental health is still not there.
This episode is brought to you by True Captive Insurance. What if you could take full control of your healthcare strategy without the financial burdens of traditional insurance? At True Captive Insurance, they make that possible. As the only captive in the nation that puts up the majority of collateral on your behalf, they provide financial flexibility from day one, making them an advocating partner for their customer success. True Captive's fully customizable plans and cost-saving strategies ensure you never have to choose between affordability and quality care. It's time to break free from the limitations of conventional insurance. Take the next step today. Visit truecaptive.com and discover a smarter way to manage healthcare. That is truecaptive.com.
You brought up a really good point I want to chat about, because I think we operate in an industry that loves to commoditize things. How is Ally very different from what we might think of as the traditional EAP model?
Yep. We have components of that. We also have components of the scheduled ongoing talk therapy that somebody would get if they went to a therapist maybe through their insurance or going out of pocket and seeking a provider for an in-person session. We have both of those pieces together under one vendor, one wheelhouse, one partner.
Yeah.
Where an employee can have their scheduled ongoing therapy, or they can start with EAP. Maybe they want to start with coach. And one of the ways I describe it is sort of that intimidation factor, because therapy is scary.
Yeah.
And if someone doesn't really know what that means and all they know is the stigma associated with it, maybe starting with a life coach or a nutrition coach or somebody like that would be their step one. Cool, we have that. Maybe it is, I'm going to call in and talk to a short-term counselor. I'm going to correspond via messenger or email with a coach and just start a dialogue. Cool. Maybe I am ready to start therapy, but it can be this process of growth for the person to learn the process instead of, oh, we just have this available or we just have this available. It's more holistic when it comes to mental health services.
Yeah. Do you find that because it's very much app driven that you tend to get a higher level of engagement because people can engage, I hate to say it, in the comfort of their home, but that suffering in silence. But when I've got easy access to help, I don't have to go through the HR director to find out where are our EAP services, because now I just threw up the red flag. Do you find that makes it easy for people to engage a lot more because of that? Okay.
It does. And Ally Health specifically and other services do this too. We really push employees to register on the app. So they might already be enrolled in our service, but to get them to activate their account, just like if you go to the doctor, you have that intake form, right? You have to do it every time. So it's the same thing to get into our web platform or our app. But once they're in there, there's a little bit more trust, like, oh, I have access to these things and nobody else needs to know. And they can have their family members and things like that too. But getting them on there is really, it's our responsibility to cause that behavior and that action. And then from there, it's leading a horse to water, but at least they have water.
Yeah. It's interesting we're even having this conversation because I think about it. We spend so much time talking about how we as an industry offer this to the workforce that we serve. But again, observing what goes on within our own industry, there's as much of a need for people. I mean, in the last 12 months, 3 people through acquaintances, so I didn't know the individual, but 3 industry professionals took their own life. And again, it's that most people, they deal with that shock because we would have never known.
Right.
And it's because that person was suffering in silence. Everything up here may look great. The cars, the houses, the money, the agency. You have no idea what's going on under the service. What drives you to be part of that movement as somebody who offers a mental health solution? What I love to learn is I don't think the people who are succeeding in our industry are not doing it just to make some money and sell a product. Sure. There's a little mission behind it, a little passion. What drives you, especially to be aligned with a product that is based on mental health?
Yeah. Personal experience through my family, in my own life, and then of course stories from friends and family thereafter. I was lucky to be raised in a family who talked about mental health. Half of my family basically across the board struggles with chronic depression. So I was raised in a space that we talked about it. We talk about having the blues and down days and things like that. And I struggled with depression personally several times in my life, where I actually went on the antidepressants, and I even went to therapy when my parents were divorcing. I went to therapy when I was in 4th grade, or I don't even know, some adolescent year. So I was even comfortable with it then. And then as getting into my late teens, antidepressants. I had a traumatic event later in my life where I needed anxiety medication and antidepressants, and that's not just to say that therapy is just for the medication part, but sometimes you need tools to achieve what you need to achieve. And at that point, I needed some tools. But one of the things that I experienced was and actually I recently shared this on social media too, because May was Mental Health Awareness Month generally, and then June for men, but that I had access to an employee assistance program, and I called them because I was in crisis. I was having a really tough time. I was having a total meltdown, and I needed help. So I reached out the employee assistance program. They gave me a list of providers in my local vicinity within 10 miles or 15 miles. And there's probably 30 names on there. And I picked 6 or so, and I called them crying, leaving sobbing voicemails like, I need help. Like, please, like, somebody call me. One of those 6 ever called me back. And her name was Leslie. And Leslie was with me for almost 2 years. Wonderful woman, therapist. She called me back, I think within the hour, and was able to sort of calm me down in my anxiety that I was having. And then obviously I hired her at that point. And in the beginning, so part one of the challenge is if you're in crisis and you can't get to a provider, that's when a lot of times people tip, and they're self-harm or, drug and alcohol abuse and all sorts of things. Not always, but commonly. So that was sort of step one, is getting access was really tough. I worked with Leslie for about a year, and then I no longer had that insurance anymore. And I moved out of state, and she was only in California, and probably shouldn't show the rest of the sun here. But anyway, so we went out of pocket, which was expensive, but that was my option. Like that's my option.
Well, and you knew you needed it.
Yeah. So, so it's tricky. There's so many barriers, and that's coming from somebody. Point of all that is to say, this is coming from somebody who grew up being comfortable talking about therapy and mental health, who understands insurance and healthcare, who still is struggling to get the access to, providers and things that I might need across the board. So I feel like I'm an advocate for those people who don't have that same situation that I had growing up.
Yeah.
Have a lot of fear around this process. So that's fine.
Well, I think a lot of people grow up and possibly grow up in families that vulnerability is not allowed.
True. Yeah, absolutely.
You just buck it up and suck it up. And I think we've all, I don't know. I feel like we've all gone through our own form of depression at one point in life. I can even look back. I call my 2007 to 2010 my dark years, my lost years, because I was in the industry, but I hated it.
Yeah.
I wasn't making good life choices around with the people who I was surrounding myself with. And people often talk about, like, I did 3 Ironmans at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I did the Ironmans because I needed to lean into something that made me feel good, because everything else felt so bad.
Right. Yeah.
And so even when I look back at those Ironman years, I don't look back at them with like pride, because I realized I was doing them to hide from something else.
Right.
To escape.
And that's really
parts of my life I did not like.
Yeah. And so many people will just relate that, like, oh, you're so healthy and you're so fit and you're achieving all these great things. And you're like, yeah, I was masking it for everything else that I, like you said, you hated or whatever.
I might be asking an unfair question, so feel free to say I don't want to answer, but being somebody who represents, a program in the mental health space, if somebody's listening, is there like certain, if you have a family member, friend, signs that you should be aware of that I don't think something's right?
I don't know that I can speak to that.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that might be an unfair question.
But there's a lot of resources where you can get some of that information. Yeah. Like I mentioned the National Alliance of Mental Illness. They have a great website, NAMI, great website. They have local chapters throughout different states to help provide that education. And the Mental Health America is another website and sort of nonprofit that I follow, and they provide a lot of education around things like that.
Yeah. I'll ask you a very product specific thing, if you don't mind, because there's probably people listening, and I'd say a good chunk of our audience are benefit advisors. Okay. With Ally Health, how does that look like? If somebody is listening and they want to implement or bring that solution to a client, what does that look like? How does it work? Is it a PEPM? What is that?
Yep, it's a PEPM, typically employer paid.
Okay.
The robustness and the value of the service is really an employer paid strategy. Not only for the ROI of claims redirection with an urgent care program to really drive away and mitigate double-digit rate increases and self-funded programs and level funded and everything else that's out there. So that's a big key part of that. And then the mental health piece. People aren't going to voluntarily enroll in a mental health program because of stigma.
Hence, employer paid.
Right. So, and there's a million strategies around all of that. So it is a PEPM. Great news because we're a service, we're not insurance. It's very turnkey. It's very quick to get started. That's actually how I found Ally Health when I was a broker. I was like, these guys are easy and they have great services, and we have so much more in our suite since I started 4.5 years ago. But yeah, it's quick, so we can implement usually within a couple weeks, if not sooner.
I'm curious. Sorry for all the left field questions, but it's intriguing me. I'm like, when I think about what you guys do, is there a correlation? I'd be curious to know if there's a correlation between mental health and, struggling in silence, and that leading to potential bigger medical and pharmacy claims downstream. You know what I'm saying? Let's talk about that, because think about that.
Yes.
We always talk about, in this industry, on the benefit side, we got to go find the next big claimant.
Yeah.
How much impact does one's current mental health have on that potentiality of a big claim?
Oh yeah. And this is purely my opinion part of this conversation. A lot of this is anyway, but yes, absolutely. So, and I just pulled the statistic because we did our mental health awareness webinar a couple weeks ago, and I cannot remember what it said because, vacation and everything else. But I want to say something like 2/3 of all emergency room visits, which are one of the most expensive claims on a regular basis, call it 2/3, call it whatever you want. The vast majority of emergency room claims are drug and alcohol related. And drug and alcohol typically means that there's a mental health issue stemming that. Something else I like to talk about when we're building like a wellness program in a group is that's great that you want to give points or something for steps or activity or movement or going to get a wellness blood test or whatever. Great. Love that you're doing that. However, what happens before someone puts on their shoes to go for the walk? What happens when the best thing they can do to get out of bed is to, I don't know, even do that? Like, that's the hardest part of their day, is getting out of bed. How are you expecting them to do these other games and incentives? That's not going to get them anywhere. That's not going to make them healthier. That's not going to make them.
That's why those programs.
Talk to a nutritionist.
Exactly. That's why those programs just aren't as effective as they should be, because who participates? The people feeling good here and here. Yeah. And you're not hitting the people you're actually needing to hit.
Right. So maybe if we start it there, where they can start up here, and then those coaches, those counselors, those therapists can help give them the tools, whether they be behavioral tools or medical tools, to get them with one foot in front of the other.
Well, and I know this might sound obvious, but mindset's everything, because if you're an employer who has a workforce that you are asking to be productive, if somebody is not good here between the ears, they're not going to perform well on the field. Yeah. There's just no way.
And in addition, and I had another stat for this too, that parents with adolescent children who are absolutely struggling right now, they're also, maybe they're okay with their mental health, the parents are, but because they're so consumed with their child's mental health, or their child is missing school, or their child is suicidal, that's going to take away from their productivity and add to their absenteeism for work, because they're consumed by their child's mental health. So getting adolescents access to care is equally critical, but we don't think about that when we're talking about employee benefits as much, because we're talking about the employee, and typically it's full-time benefit eligible employees, but you have all these part-timers, you have non-benefit eligible, you have people who are waiving benefits, and you have all of their families that don't have that accessibility to something that could save their life.
Well, let's talk about what do you do to keep yourself good up here? Obviously, you're big into fitness. What do you do when Jenny's not working? What are you doing off the field? What are your from a hobbies, habits, hobby. Let's start with hobbies. What do you do to keep yourself happy and moving? So let's start with hobbies, exercising,
Yep.
things like that. What do you do to keep yourself in a good place mentally?
Yep. Well, being in the sun is important to me. So Arizona was a great move. From California, but there's more sun here.
Even more than California.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
They get like fog and rains.
Depending on where you are.
It's really nice here. So I am a CrossFitter. I've been doing CrossFit off and on.
You a trainer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 12 or 15 years. I've been doing CrossFit in several capacities. And then golf is a big thing for me now too. So that's my hobby and my sport. And those two activities are very counterintuitive because you're trying to build strength in CrossFit and then you're trying to be more like flexible and stuff and mobile when you golf.
Hey, you're hitting the golf ball far.
I'm having a blast. Oh yeah. That part, that's my favorite part. So those two things are really important. You met my dog Lady. She was my first love and she is definitely my happy place. So
You think a pet makes a huge difference from the mental health perspective?
oh yeah. She's like the fact that she's 9 makes me so sad. I'm like, stop getting older. I need you forever. But that doesn't happen. But she's amazing. So she definitely cuddling, petting her, anything with her really lightens my day.
You know, it's interesting you bring that up. A couple thoughts there.
Yeah.
So we live in Wisconsin now,
Yeah.
where we're from, but we were in Colorado for 9 years. A lot of it because of the vitamin D.
Mm-hmm.
And when we moved back, we just spent a month in Palm Springs this winter.
Okay.
And of the 30 days we were there, 27 or 28 of them were sun.
Mm-hmm.
When we came back about a month in, because in Wisconsin, March, April is gray. So is November, December. Amy, my fiance, said, like, next year we're going to have to find a way to spend more time in the winter somewhere else where it's sunnier because you literally change
Oh,
when you're not in the sun.
yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
we underplay the benefits of being somewhere where it's sunny.
Yeah.
Would you, being somebody who's from California now lives in Arizona, I think you would agree with that.
Absolutely. And in this neighborhood specifically, you may or may not have noticed when you came in, nobody's here anymore. Everybody has snowbirded back to their
Oh, okay. So, okay. I
I've
did not notice that.
probably, and they park in their garages too, I guess, but probably 80% of our neighborhood are snowbirds. Not to tell you guys where I live, but everything's pretty vacant right now.
So, CrossFit, golf.
Yeah.
Talk about the ladies group that you started with golf.
Yep. So, going on about 3 years ago, I started we called it the club, but it was just a golf meetup where women in my network had mentioned, hey, you golf, I'd love to learn how to golf. And I was like, shoot, I'll teach you. I'm not a coach. I'm not an expert like scratch golfer, but I know the basics. I know what the clubs are, how you hold them, what they're used for, and I can get you going. So that's sort of where it started. And then it always takes 3 times for me to hear something to be like, okay, I guess that's a sign. Maybe I should do something about it. So I had heard about LEGS, which is Lady Executive Golf Society, from 3 different people, a couple of which were in reference to other women in our industry and in our mutual network, which was exciting. And I was like, yeah, let's reach out. So learn about LEGS. Their mission aligned with what I really was passionate about, which was help to empower women on and off the golf course.
Yeah.
And it was part of a greater organization. We now have, I think, 18 or 19 chapters throughout the country.
Wow.
Scottsdale being one of all of them. And it's great. It's fun to be part of a growing organization and doing exactly that, just to empower women on and off the course.
Which brings a whole different aspect of mental health, which is important, community.
Yeah. Yep.
You've got to have that community.
And boy, we have it. These women are amazing. I love my women here in Arizona. And I haven't met many of the others in other chapters yet. Obviously, the founder, Jillian. But so when we get together, you can either play 9 holes or you can do a lesson wherever your skill set is at, or you can toggle between the two. It's fine. And then at the end, we get together for kind of networking, a little round table, and then we each share what I call a Wonder Woman wow. So toot your own horn. Like, this is a place for, like, let's celebrate you. Because as women, sometimes, like, we're afraid to do that. So it's a safe place for that. And also, what ask do you have? Do you have a personal ask, a professional ask? Like, who do you need to meet? Like, what's going on with you? Like, how can we help? So we go around and we talk about that. And almost every time we have laughter and we have tears. And it is just beautiful. There's just so much love in our group. And
If somebody's listening, I'm sure there's more chapters to be built.
yeah,
If somebody who's a female is listening and says, hey, tell me more about this legs, where are the chapters? Hey, what if I wanted to start my own? What would be the best way to get in touch to learn more about that?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, they can message me. I'm happy to talk about it at any point. Arizona can use probably a dozen more chapters, so we're definitely growing for sure. Um, but I would get them in touch with the founder, and then they can have that conversation.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about habits and rituals for you. Exercise is obviously a big one. How many weekdays a week do you CrossFit?
When I'm home, I usually go like 4 or 5.
4 or 5.
Yeah.
What are some of the other daily habits you incorporate into your life that have helped guide your success?
It's funny you mentioned that in the message and planning this, and I was like, oh no, I don't know what to talk about for this one. That's definitely something that I'm working on getting back into is true habits. I probably have more than I think that I do.
They're just
They're just
ingrained now.
Yeah. I know for sure cuddling my dogs multiple times a day. That is a routine habit, especially in the morning.
They are
Get out of bed, go to the ground, cuddle the dog, start my day. That is critical.
Funny, I was just on a podcast, and the question started it with, they ask everybody,
Yeah.
what's the first thing you think of when you get up in the morning?
Yeah.
Yours, get down, cuddle a dog.
Cuddle my dog. 100% every morning. So that's probably the best one. Other habits and rituals. Actually, I think hugs and like personal physical touch is like incredibly important for my wellness.
Good for mental health, too.
Totally. And I'm really lucky that my significant other and I, for the most part, work remote.
Yep.
So we get to hug throughout the day.
Yeah.
And that's a really great break actually for both of us. And it's something that we talk about when one of us is traveling.
Yeah.
That's, I think, what we miss the most is just to randomly, like between calls, even if there's a minute in between, that we get that quick hug.
I like it. Anybody you follow, like outside the industry, as far as mentor goes, or people on social media where that's your thought leader that helps guide some of your principles?
Yeah. More so when I was in like a more of a leadership role, but I love Simon Sinek.
Okay.
Love Simon Sinek. And a lot of like relationship and interpersonal communication tools and thoughts with him too. So he's been a really great resource for me for many years. Oh my gosh, David Goggins. Oh, not so much recently, but David Goggins was a lot of fuel for me for quite some time as well. But at this point, I don't make a lot of time for all that, and it's definitely been
Too busy doing.
Yeah, I'm just in, that's really the season I'm in right now, where I'm just.
You bring up a really good point. I mean, when I asked you about what you do to put yourself in a good, positive space mentally, I think it's the stuff we often overlook, but it's so important. Vitamin D.
Mhm.
You got to get on. And I'm sorry, anything being thrown out there these days about stay out of the sun
Yeah.
the sun is what keeps us alive.
Right.
The community.
Mhm.
I'll tell you, I struggle because my fiance and I are on the same team, same company,
Mhm.
and work out of the house. And it's easy to become a hermit
Mhm.
because I coach mostly people from other parts of the country.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to become a hermit, sit in your house, not go out. We heard a phrase actually from a guy from Arizona we met a couple weeks ago, and I loved it because we're going to embrace it. He said, my life changed when we moved down to Arizona. I didn't know anybody. And he goes, I was being that guy that wasn't going out meeting. He goes, and then I decided to live life from the front yard instead of the backyard, which is get to know your neighbors, go out, meet people.
Yeah.
And that for me was such a big, because again, working on my house, it's so easy to just get in your bubble of this is what I do. I don't go out and meet people. So that tribe is important.
Okay. So, and this is part of that, like subconscious, I guess it just happens. That is exactly what I did. And I think from there, it's just been kind of organic growth and connection. Because when we moved to Arizona, I also didn't know anybody and kind of took a leap of faith. And it took me working remote. I actually got a job at a restaurant and bar here just so I could like be around people. And that was interesting, but great for what it was and what it needed to be. And then it took me to realize that that wasn't the community I wanted to be around, and that I wanted to be part of something more aligned.
Yeah.
And that's when I sort of took that leap. I started going to NABIP events.
Yeah.
I joined a couple other associations just to kind of see where my people were.
Is that how you got to join Legs?
Legs was farther down the road. But really, it all started snowballing when I realized that if I couldn't find something that fit, then I had to build it myself.
Yep.
And that's where Legs started, when it was
Gotcha.
the club, but then into Legs.
Yep.
Where I wasn't finding my exact group, so I built my group of
Yep.
people from different
I love
parts of my life, and so it just kind of
Can't find your tribe, create your tribe.
yeah.
That's
And I have an amazing tribe out here.
That's awesome.
I love
Do you think it's easier out here when you're in a place where a lot of people are not from here?
Yeah. It's so special.
Yeah.
Arizona definitely has that, because I think we have that camaraderie of, hey, I moved here one time.
I had that story of coming
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Yep.
one out of every 25 or something is from here, maybe less, but and even there's just everyone is a familiar face, it feels like.
Well, and you bring up a good point. My fiance who's now in our business, AJ. She goes by AJ. We have two Amy's on the team, so she is AJ in the
Sure.
business. She's been a dental hygienist for 22 years. She still goes and practice. She does that once or twice a month, just so she can get out and talk to people.
Oh. Yeah.
Because as a dental hygienist, you're having 8-9 conversations a day with patients, right? She goes and she still does it once or twice a month just to keep that going.
Yeah.
Because at home, again, we're working remote.
Yep.
You lose that touch point.
Yeah. Super important. I love
Last question. This has been a great conversation. Bringing it back to our industry, because we talked about this earlier, and I am very opinionated about this. I know. We have a lot of people, I think, who do get caught up in seeking the attention in the industry, and I think it catches them eventually mentally. I see them burn out eventually, and then all of a sudden, it's like, where did they go? What advice would you give somebody who is in our industry right now, who might be getting caught up in that social attention seeking, comparing?
Yeah.
Because I think it really does mess with us mentally.
Yeah.
Like, what would be your advice to that person?
Take a break.
Yeah.
Detox. Go for a walk. Like, it's one of the things that I've learned in therapy is if you're like constantly feeling some sort of way about something, call it a trigger, call it anxiety, call it addiction, like pick your word. Figure out what is happening right before that. And maybe it's because you're grabbing your phone, you're on social media, you're whatever is happening right before that occurs, and do something different. So for me, when I was going through some things and I was working with Leslie, my alternative behavior was to pet my dog. That was like if you want to do this, or you're feeling like something coming on, do something that creates ultimate happiness for me.
So if you're feeling triggered, pet dog.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. And I think that's a big part of just my whole world now.
Yeah.
Like, I have to break. I'm feeling overwhelmed.
But hence the hugging her in the
Or I
morning.
hug my dog. Yeah. So it's just.
That's a really good point, because I think we've all had those certain things that trigger us, right? Even as much as I am known for LinkedIn and social media, I actually don't really like it. I'm there for business. I'm there to grow my business. So I too can get caught in that scroll hole a little bit. And this one post from one person can trigger me. And it's like, you got to have that. What's that default when you feel the trigger?
Yeah.
Put the phone down, go outside, pet the dog, whatever you got to do, let it go.
Yep. Or if you're somebody that follows the schedule, as I do, like I follow my calendar. I don't know how I survive without it. And this is probably something I need to actually implement. So I'm glad I'm saying it out loud. Is schedule a time where you don't have your phone.
Yep.
Like, just schedule it. Like, this is the block of time where my phone stays somewhere. Like, what I should be doing when I leave to go to CrossFit, my phone should just stay here. I don't need that with me.
Yeah,
why does it come with me? I'm still checking email when I'm driving there. That's awful.
It's like a comfort blanket.
Starting today, no phone when I go to CrossFit.
Well, think about that.
Doing it.
If you left for CrossFit right now, here's what's so funny about that, and you got halfway there and you didn't have your wallet,
Yeah.
Your driver's license. You're like,
Yeah.
I'm good.
Right.
Don't have your phone. Always tells my phone.
Right.
Like we have just, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Jen, it's been awesome. Thank you for doing this. And, I knew I was coming down here, wanted to have your energy on, and it worked out. It's Men's Health Month, which made this topic really important. So last question, I know it's probably the obvious answer, but if somebody is listening in and they wanted to reach out to you just to, learn more, or Ally Health, what's the easiest way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can just email me, honestly. Jenny at allyhealth.net is great.
Awesome. Well, this has been fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Jenny Weaver, everybody. Be good.
That's all we got for this episode of the Accelerate Your Insurance Sales Podcast. One of the most valuable things you can do to help us and other new potential listeners find our show is for you to rate the show and leave a review. So as a special bonus for you, if you leave us a review, take a screenshot of your review and send it to me as a DM to my LinkedIn profile. I will send you a free copy of our LinkedIn Diamond Playbook, our proven 4-step strategy to grow your business on LinkedIn. So go right now, leave us a review, screenshot it, and send me a DM on LinkedIn. Also, please share this podcast with anyone you think would enjoy it. That's it for now.